Outside the box of religious obligation lies a road less travelled, into the heart of the Father's affection. Slinging freedom all over the place, this is the God Journey.
Alrighty, since I'm on the way to Canada, we're doing a twofer today.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to follow up the conversation we finished just last week for you, but it was 2 minutes ago for us. So
Still fresh.
I'm Wayne Jacobsen.
I'm Brad Cummings.
And we didn't do that last time, so people have no idea who we are.
Two crazy guys just slinging freedom.
All over the place.
Yeah.
And living to tell the tale so far. So it is the God Journey. And it's a pleasure to have you back all the time again.
It's fun.
People are seeming to enjoy it as well. Hey, we were talking about just some of the medical condition and healing and God. That's how we ended last week. We may get back to that again. This is an email from Dave. He said, something that jumped out at me from your last podcast was when Brad introduced the one-liner that it would be best to enjoy our relationship with Father for the relationship's sake, rather than what we can get out of it. You agreed with him, and it sounded like a concept which very few people actually embrace fully. I'm not in any way making that a dogmatic statement, as there would be thousands of people around the world living into that reality. But in general, I think that religion somehow imposes a vast array of obstacles in the way of coming to view Father as a loving Father and simply enjoying that relationship and living life from that place. It may not be possible, but you and Brad are the only people I know who might be able to do this. Would it be possible for you and Brad to have a discussion about what life would look like in an ordinary person's life? If they'd never been exposed to any religion or theology and had only the view that Father was a loving Father, Jesus was his amazingly loved Son, and that they were a dearly loved son or daughter of God, and all the other believers that are dearly loved children, who all have totally different relationships with Father, but all are equally loved.
An uninfected life.
Yeah, and I don't have an answer to that.
But that is wonderful to ponder. What if someone had no exposure to the infected side of religion and just realized that God was altogether wonderful and this was about walking and talking with him?
Was that God's hope in the garden, you wonder?
I'm thinking it was kind of precisely that. not even maybe that, but precisely that.
But he kind of knew better it wouldn't work, right?
This is where, again, I'm a little weird. I'm actually thinking...
Again, come with us to Israel for weird stories from the Bible.
More weird
this
thoughts.
Is weird story.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Brad may end up gagged in the back of the bus.
Yeah, maybe. No, I end up looking... When it says in Genesis 5 that God looked down upon the earth and he repented of having ever made man, I have not heard any sermons on that.
Never?
I have never heard a sermon on that. I don't think most people have the desire to wrestle with that. But I end up going like, that means God, if it's genuine words, that's God going, this is not how this needed to turn out. This was not what I had in mind. This was not what I wanted. And it's what happened. And so I end up going like, that's got to adjust your sovereignty motifs a little bit.
It does, or it challenges how we view Scripture and whether Moses is feeling that as he writes it, if he's the one that wrote Genesis, and whether it's not exactly the way God would have felt it.
Yeah, I end up looking at it as going like, wow, God didn't control the very thing he created. That's incredible, because most of the people I know try to.
Yeah, I guess he did fine up until he did the whole man thing. Up till then, we got animals, we got birds. We're looking good. Let's try one more thing.
Oops. Wow, that just pushed it over the edge.
How many of you done that? One more thing that just turned out not to.
You create the angelic creation and you give them the freedom to rebel on you? I honestly, those things blow my mind, because I'm going like, I don't know any people secure enough to live that way.
And then you didn't obliterate them when they did.
Yes.
You let them go infect the creation.
See, I think that when you start to get that God in your sights and you recognize, I get the privilege of walking with that person who's not trying to control me and force me, that makes me want to walk with that person and frankly, hurry up to get closer, because most everybody else on the planet has an agenda for me. And And I think what started to shift in response to this guy's question, what started to shift for me is I don't want to use God as a means to my end. Because I'm really tired of other people trying to do that with me. Good friends all of a sudden see me as a resource as opposed to a relationship. And that has an unfun taint to it.
Absolutely, because then when you don't give them what they want, the friendship is over. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I have tried not to push it there, but yeah.
Yeah, it is.
I'm left with that sense of going like, I am more of a resource than I am a relationship.
A brother to be cared about, to be loved. Yeah.
And so I think, when you sit there and you see that, and I try to go like, well, maybe I'm not seeing that fully the way it is. I try to give them some benefit of the doubt so as to save the relationship.
I love how generous
That's
you
not
are.
necessarily working out the best for me, but I still try to err in that direction.
It sets you up to be used again.
Yes, it does. It does make you roadkill very easily. But when I looked at that, it's like, I said, like, Lord, I'm pretty sure I'm becoming more aware of this because it has a benefit of perspective. I'm sorry, Lord. I don't want to treat you that way. I really want you to enjoy the relationship that we have. And I'm thinking that I, as a human being, am realizing something. You love to bless us. I think the Lord loves to give us wonderful gifts. But I think he loves to do it from the flow of relationship and love, not because I'm working him.
And I'm working him is a tough road to go down.
Yeah, because, I don't think it's wise. The reason I don't think it's wise is because I've come to get a better grip of me going, I don't really see the full perspective most of the time. So when I force my will in my way, I may not be happy with it once I get it.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about 42 years of the tainted religious thing that David writes about here, of God is someone to be worked, and the scriptures is the way to work him. And you pray through, press in, fast and pray and cry and show God how deep you want. And there's scriptures, the widow that goes to the judge at night and cries all night and he won't help her because he cares. He's going to help her because he's tired of being annoyed. And you got scriptures that kind of point to the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man. So if I'm really praying hard for something, I'm going to try to be more righteous because that will endear
it's not
God.
that those things work on a reluctant God.
No, and they do, that's the key. But 42 years of figuring that out. See, not the quickest, whatever, not the quickest.
Sharpest tool in the shed.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, something like that. Yeah, because I to even imagine what this journey would be like untainted, it'd be glorious. It certainly would. If I just woke into the reality of who God was as a little kid, the way I'm coming to know who he is now, and that I could trust him with the outcomes in my life and not waste, maybe 17 years of frustration, anguish at God, of the anguished prayers to an adversary that I had to get to do what I thought was best. Can you take all that out of your life? I'd have gotten back a lot of time. Because,
oh gosh, yeah.
Because like you said, it didn't work.
The uninfected life. I love that thought. I really do. The uninfected life.
But we are all infected. So we go back to reality.
Unfortunately, yeah. I attended enough places where I got the dose or the inoculation or something.
Not just by religion. It's even infected by the arrogance of our flesh that thinks we know better than God. So it's not just religion. We're tainted by this fleshy sin nature that, thank God for dear Adam, put in the world.
Well, the whole bit when I'm asking, say I don't even have the formulated understanding of who this God fully is, but when I don't get what I want, I don't assume good things about the guy I'm trying to get it from. I just assume he's holding out on me. The reluctant miser that is not giving me.
Isn't that the lie in the garden? Yeah, exactly that lie.
You're not giving me what I want, therefore there's some defect in you, as opposed to perhaps
but then we know better.
An ill-directed wish of mine.
There's no defect in God, so the problem is me. And I think most people land there. Most people aren't Job saying, you're screwing with me, and it's not fair. Most people are like, okay, I can't do enough. I haven't prayed enough. I don't work enough. I got sin in my life.
But never assuming that God not immediately responding to my little bellhop ringer might actually be his love and care for me going, yeah, I had a different thing on mind.
Yeah, but when you're young...
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're young and you're ringing your bell, Mommy, I need help, and she ignores you. I think,
dirty, rotten mommy. She doesn't care. She doesn't love me.
Isn't this how religion has really disfigured God? It said if you jump through these hoops, God will jump through those hoops.
That happens in secular homes that have nothing to do with religion. That is selfishness. That is the poison of selfishness.
What happens in homes that aren't religiously trained? What were you saying? I lost you.
I think people's selfishness when mommy doesn't do, I don't think you need the infectedness of religion. That just makes it worse.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Just the poison of selfishness, where it's me and mine.
Your
and I
selfish
can't,
self.
Yeah, my selfish self. Where it's me and mine, and I can't see past that. That's enough to tweak my sense of, whoever I'm supposed to be working with to make this happen. When they don't do what I want, I don't like them.
And then when I don't like them, I'm going to find something wrong with them.
Yeah.
So I have a reason not to like them.
I'm gonna
creepy,
bulwark that.
disgusting, arrogant people. And then the whole world
I think that infects everything. That might be what makes religion weird, because now I got a system that I'm trying to work to try to correct things, and the reason I'm imposing all that, because I personally don't know anyone that said, "Muhahaha, I'm going to go into religion and mess things up." I don't know anyone
True.
that is with intent and clarity.
But it's so perfectly designed that if it doesn't work, it's your fault. Because you're not good enough. You haven't prayed enough. You haven't.
There's an anointing on that. Stop.
No, isn't that true?
Yeah, no, stop.
Why?
It feels yucky.
Well, that's how people, I think, mostly live their life. You and I have enough, whatever. I know I'm a Job type. If I don't think I'm getting a fair shake from God, this is 40 years. I'm going to give him hell. Doggone it. I've done my part of this.
Yeah.
But I think you and I are I think we are slim side of the bell curve. I think most people, my dad thought I was so, how dare you challenge God? Because I just go, man, God's not being fair. He goes, what? How dare you? I'm going, look, Job did it. David did it. I'm going to do it.
I've got precedent.
But most people aren't going to go there. Most people are going to turn inward. My fault.
Condemn self.
I don't do enough. And then, boy, they lose their sense that God could possibly be a loving father engaged with them.
See, I think all of that stuff is still relating to a caricature, not relating to him.
Yeah, religion is a caricature of what humans would make God to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's like by principle, I have drawn the rest of the picture out the way I think he is. I believe that's his image, and I'm going like, no.
And a wake-up call for me
not quite.
Was when I saw the God that Christianity created, let's say it that way, was not all that different from the false gods we made up on our own. Angry, offended deity, wants people to give gifts and offerings. Yeah, must be appeased by gifts and offerings and good behavior. I don't know if you saw this.
Or bad outcomes will be heaped upon your head with hot coals.
I don't see if you saw this meme on the internet about the one we did on salvation. Somebody posted it on our thing about.
Oh, no.
I missed this meme when it went around, but it showed Jesus knocking on a door and it said, "Let me in." And the voice inside says, "Why?" And Jesus says, "So I can save you." And the voice inside says, "From what?" And Jesus says, "From what I'm going to do to you if you let me in."
That's terrible.
That's terrible. But isn't that what most people have got? Jesus saves us either from himself or from God, who's just so ticked off that
I'm not responding.
Oh my gosh. I laughed for 10 minutes when I read that comment. I'm going to save you from what I'm going to do to you if you don't let me in.
Chasing his tail and finally getting it. Now what?
We have that around here too. That's hilarious. They sit there with that stupid look on their face.
What do I do now?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. When I realized that religion, my Christian religion growing up, made God just like the
See, but
false gods that we invented. That's where transformation really go, hold it. He's not different than that.
Isn't that our effort to somehow clothe our own shame? The principles that we make, the God that we come up with.
Yeah, that's what
the
false
system
gods
that we
are
try
like.
to work. That seems all designed to somehow clothe me from what I'm feeling, as opposed to taking my condition to the one who can actually remove that shame.
Yeah. And how did we take, this is what absolutely dumbfounds me. How did we take the lovely things Jesus said and did in the world and turned it right back into that false view, an offended deity that needs to be appeased by human activity? Because Christianity did that.
I think the reason and the why I'm seeing, perhaps for some of the first time with clarity, is I think that is our effort to clothe ourselves. That's when we know something's wrong, and I take it upon myself to be the problem solver, the fixer of that. I try to work a system that will allow me to somehow feel better about myself, as opposed to the humility of going like, hey, oops, my bad. This is really wrong. I can't fix this, God. And I'm actually aware, and I take ownership. I'm not running from this. I know so few people that feel comfortable acknowledging their failures.
Yeah.
You
with
pointed
each other,
out,
much less
Mount Vesuvius erupt. I mean, it's like they do not enjoy having that pointed out, or they become master deflector, and all of a sudden we're in 1,000 different directions than the thing that needs to be addressed.
And isn't that why Dallas Willard called Christianity a shame management system?
Yeah.
We've really just taken the teachings of Jesus, distorted them. So we've still got to work harder to appease this angry God. We pull out the phrases in Scripture we can get to that go, yeah, God's mean, God's demanding, we've screwed up, we've got to get better. I've got to let him in to save me from what he's going to do to me if I don't let him in. That whole mentality. And we disfigured God so much by doing that then most people live in this angst of, I've got to get him on my side, and I can't ever admit that I'm weak or whatever, because God's not coming to help me until I deserve it.
See, I think that the whole, poor caricature of God is what God looks like when I'm looking at him through shame. I think it really is, it distorts that. It's a picture that I don't recognize what's around me or what I'm doing. So I don't think we know exactly how to correct it. I've mentioned this before, but there was almost a season of a year where the constant thing God said to me is, Brad, I'm not like you. I'm not like you. And I'm going like, thanks a lot. Way to rub it in. Because I wasn't understanding at all, because I was feeling that was a total put down. And what he was trying to say is, hey, your parameter, what you're looking at, your perception of me is not even close. It's not who I am. Your idea of my goodness falls so short of who I really am. And I only heard that as a put down until he finally kind of said, hey, Brad, I'm trying to help you realize that everything you've been projected, everything that you've been trying to, is not close to who I am. And it is the lens that you're always drawn to, and it's not bringing you to me. And I was like, when I finally recognized that, I sat there like, okay, well, I'm left at a disadvantage. You're talking about a color I can't see. I have no frame of reference going like, if you're not like what I've supposed, I need something that's going to calibrate this and make it real. You're going to have to show up in a way that I get what you're saying, because right now it just feels like gobbledygook words that don't have any meaning, because I don't have any emotional counterpart to connect me with what you're saying.
But the gift in that is I'm looking here and God's not fitting there. And if the conclusion is he's not real or I'm a bad guy, then the gift is I'm not like you. You're projecting your best self on me, and that doesn't even get close.
Yeah.
So if you keep looking there, you're going to be disappointed and you're going to be disillusioned about God. And if we can, here's where I got to in those prayers, saying, okay, God, I want to know you like you really are. I'm willing to go. I'll admit, I don't know who you are. I don't.
See, I think that is essential. Yeah. Somehow we actually have to get there.
But shame won't let you get there, will it? Because you're so busy defending your view of God. You're so busy defending yourself. You're so busy propping. I'm okay. I must be okay. I must be okay. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. And why people are so afraid to let go of all that religious performance stuff is that's their security. That mitigates their shame. And if I'm not jumping through all those hoops, if I'm sitting home on a Sunday morning, people say, I feel so guilty. I feel like I should be doing something for God somewhere.
You know what's weird is in my heart, there was this cry, well, I'm doing the best I can. Okay.
That looks as ugly as it just did on your face. No. Video. We need video.
No, but you sat there and said, I'm doing the best I can. And is it somehow, won't you accept me for that? And it's like, I don't know if you've ever had someone.
And God's thinking, but it will only reinforce that.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it will. I don't know if you've ever. It didn't dawn on me until someone in my life was doing that thing all the time, where I'm just going like, that's not the point. I don't care if you tried or didn't try. That's not the point. All of that is not what's ultimately going to solve this. And when I finally saw that, I went, oh wow, that makes horrible sense of a lot of what I did.
Yeah.
And I
working hard to appease, and God saying that gift isn't good enough. It's like, well, I'm already giving you everything.
That's what made Cain kill Abel.
Yeah.
And you're just going like, well, that's not a good outcome. But I finally realized the fruitlessness of my trying to project my idea of God to the nth degree of goodness, and why that was really a bad recipe, because it still included the reality that if I knew me, I kind of would reject me. And God's not like that.
Yeah.
But in as much as that's part of my taint, extrapolate that to some nth degree, it's still there, and I have a fear of being rejected that I can't get free from.
He can't enjoy you as a little puppy who doesn't get anything yet.
Yeah.
Because he wants to help you get it.
And I'm trying to get it on myself. And,
yes.
And I don't think we have the clarity to recognize that.
We don't. Shame is the soup we swim in all the time, so you don't wreck it. Well, let's go with water. It's the water we swim in.
No, I think it's soup. I think it really is. It's just as a funny way you said that. It is thicker than water. It is.
But it becomes, you just grow up in it, and then religion twisted it even more, so you don't really
Religion loves it. It's necessary. It's what makes repeat customers.
That's why I got a call this week about why you're going to hell if you're not sitting in church on Sunday morning. It was unequivocal. I was going to read it to you. Maybe
That's
we'll get
thick soup.
We don't have time today, but
that is thick soup.
It is really thick soup. The end of it was, remember, the devil wants to keep you out of church so he can keep you out of heaven. And I first read this.
I have a totally different thought on that.
I just read this guy's column, and I thought, I first read the first one. This is like a 26-year-old fresh out of seminary, got somebody to, and it goes after 40 years of ministry.
He should be allowed to write articles till you're 50.
Jaded old. Wait, no, he's been in ministry for 40 years.
The
guy's a jaded old rat. Yeah. And I was like, gee, there's a lot of stuff there we'll get to at some point, but we won't have time today. But I do think shame.
Nobody talks about shame, though.
Everybody is now that Brene Brown started. Sarah and I are reading another book on the neurobiological science of shame. So there's a lot out on shame now.
In our culture?
It's starting to. Yeah.
Really?
But Brene Brown, we've done her on the podcast, but we haven't had her as a guest, but we read the recordings. Yeah. It's opened the door to it, but I still don't think it's talking about shame in that deep spiritual sense of having to appease a God. Because most of it is all about, not feeling like you're adequate enough and those kind of things, which that's definitely an impact of shame. But the other side of it is exactly what we're talking about. It distorts our view of God, and then that warps every way we try to walk with him to complete futility. And that's when people give up. Or as one gal did, committed suicide and left in her note, I can't give God whatever it is that God needs from me. And that's just so sad. Yeah, because where we've got to get to, where people, I hope we listen to this podcast, you've got to suspend the conclusions of shame. You've got to somehow recognize them, ask him to help you, and suspend their conclusions enough to say, God, I realize I don't have a clue who you are. And yet I somehow sense through Christ that you're the most endearing presence in the universe. Would you show yourself to me? I want to be disillusioned about God. I want my illusions about you to be dissed so that I can see you as you really are. And then what I think you and I are sharing from this stage of the journey, when you look back free from all that, this God is the most endearing presence in the universe. I want to be like him. I want to know him. I want to enjoy him, not to keep him from coming in my house and beating the daylights out of me. I want to know him because he's the most endearing presence there is, and his goodness is greater than anything I can fathom.
Yeah, and until he actually rips off that filmy layer of shame, I think we really are stuck in sin there, because it's like we even distort sin and the guilt that we feel, and we get stuck in condemnation there. Which I'm going like, that doesn't free you from it. It just, you wallow in it. When all of a sudden God pulls off the shame, that doesn't mean I'm perfect and that I can obey, at a simple whim. It's more like, no, sin just isn't as large, and it doesn't get me as much because I'm not obsessing at it. Focusing on my sin and trying not to do it is not the recipe for stopping it. But in shame, it's like I'm tractor beamed on it and stuck there.
Yeah, it's just like the Zoe's cage we talked about last week in the bedroom. You pull the cage off, and then what Christianity did was they built another cage in our own mind. That's right there. You still have to do these things, keep God at bay. And you realize you can walk right through it. It's not there. It's only there in the illusion of our mind because we've gotten comfortable managing our shame there. And I think a lot of religious people, it's very difficult for them to let go of the way they've managed their shame to at least hold it at bay. At least they feel like they're good enough until they don't. Until something horrible happens or some need from God that's unmet. And we've constructed, because I do believe the cross removed shame, but then we just built a whole nother barrier because we crave that comfort. It's weird.
Crave the comfort of...
Our shame is somehow comforted by religious performance.
Yeah, I mean, people go to church on Sunday and they like getting the thrashing that the pastor gives.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard those statements. I just go like,
yeah.
What is it that we like about this?
I've been bad. I got a good whooping. I'm better now. That's part of it. Yeah. The other part of it is, man, my life's a mess. I do it. And I think that's why the big fight for going to church on Sunday morning is the required rule of God. Because if I do that, and that I can do,
that's appeasing.
Yeah, then it's like, okay, well, I know I'm cheating with my secretary, and I know I didn't file my taxes accurately, but I am, and I know God forgives, and I'm banking on all that forgiveness rhetoric, and
that's all appeasement.
Yeah, and all you have to do is go on a Sunday morning, and you get it. You get the whole thing. And if you don't go, you lose the whole thing. And you have to live by your whole shame thing, and you got to give your own gifts, and they're not ever going to be enough.
See, it feels
exhausting to talk about. I'm so tired from this podcast. I want to go to bed. This is so exhausting. I used to live in all that. I don't anymore, and I'm so grateful. Doggone.
Is there a moment that was sort of a doorway of walking out of that you can define, or is that more a tunnel and you just sort of emerged?
No, it was seeing God differently and beginning to wrestle with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I talk about the gravity of the earth and the moon, the gravity of earth being shame, what we're talking about today. For our Apollo astronauts to escape that and to get out to be able to go to the moon, there is a point you reach partway to the moon, and it's more than halfway because the moon's gravity is smaller, but where the actual gravity of the moon takes over and draws you. There is a moment, I think, for people in this journey. It's disorienting, it's discombobulating. I'm fighting guilt and shame, but I'm going to learn to trust the Father's affection. I'm going to ask him to show it to me. And there's a whole, escape velocity that somehow we have to reach in our own, that God, I think, invites us on a journey. So early days walking this way, there are times when I felt guilty that I just said, I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to believe that guilt is wrong. And I'm going to do I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing because of guilt. And I'm going to start living inside of what I feel like God's inviting me to. That 2 or 3 years of just trying to find a way out of that. And yet there came a time where I could say, and this is probably 5 years out from the early stages of it, where I could say, now I'm more drawn by the magnificence of who he is than I am drawn by my shame and the horror of who I am.
See, I think when you're focused on self, that's like that Earth's gravity.
Yep.
I'm looking at the wrong source. That is never going to allow me to fly, to reach orbit, to do whatever. I think when we're looking at God and we're really yearning for him and we're going like, hey, I am not justifying self. I am not excusing self. I am not selfing.
That's
you know?
selfing. That's good.
I am focused on you. That's where I think,
And in the early days, that last 3 seconds, I can get my eyes on God, see him for what he is, and then turn around the very next moment, get sucked back into the selfish self.
See, I learned a while back that worship could be best defined as the gaze of the soul. And it's like, that's not singing. That's what I want to draw my life from. And it's like, once you realize that is not going to work if I'm focused on me. It just isn't. I do not have the resources within me to satisfy anything about me.
Yeah.
And when you realize that, it's more like, hey, Lord, I don't want to keep looking at me. I do want to discover you. My favorite song growing up as a teenager is, Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's like, somehow that God would inhabit that song for me where it's like, that I get. Somehow that simplicity of looking away from me and the what I'm mired in and gazing at him is changing everything. It really is.
Yeah.
And it's tractor beaming me into his
and
gravity.
Don't turn that into a works performance thing. But I do think that the time we create the moments on a walk in our car where we're focusing on him, we're seeing who he is in a clearer way. Even if we lose that very quickly to a crisis at work and immediately we're back into our whole soup of anxiety and all that stuff, find those moments.
Just swim back to the surface and look back at him.
Yeah. It's like one guy said to me, and I don't know if this was the original theme, I thought it was hilarious. He said, you got to get your butts in order.
What?
Yeah, you got to get your butt in order. And I was like, what does that mean? He said, like most people, when they talk about this is such a helpful little tool. I thought about it 50 times since probably. He said, people will say stuff like, I know God is a loving and faithful God, but I've got blah, 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 blah going on in my life. He said, if you just flip that over and say, you know what I've got going in my life? This, but I know God is a faithful God. And I think that's just, I've caught myself.
See, that is doable.
I've caught myself a number of times with my butt out of order. I got in the wrong place.
Yeah.
I've got the God thing first and then negate it with the but. Instead of put the thing you think negates it first
and then
put the but and then bring God into it and then but God. And doesn't
that works.
Paul do that?
That works.
He talks about we're enemies of God, but God, rich in mercy.
Yeah.
Yeah, invites us in. I thought this cute little phrase, get your butt in order, just a lovely little way to turn the perspective away from, I wish I knew who said that to me. It was in the middle of a meeting. I'd resource it if I could. So if you did it, make a comment so we'll know it's you.
Do you know what shame means? I bet you do or know something, but
no, I have no idea.
I'm not tricking you.
I feel like I'm a kindergarten kid. Do you know what shame is?
No. I saw that look in your eyes. Go like, that's not the effect I was trying to get.
No matter what I say, you're going to one up me, aren't you? You got a really cute definition. Get your butt in order.
But God.
Butt Brad.
No, it's like when you're naked in the shower, you got no clothes.
I don't want to go there.
No, don't visualize this.
Okay.
But you don't feel
too late
naked in the shower. You don't say, "Oh, I'm naked in the shower." You don't even think of it. If you were not in the shower and you were poolside, you would.
Yeah, not totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm worried about that Google satellite.
It's to be open to the gaze of, and where you're going like, okay, where I am self-conscious and I am feeling open to the gaze of, that's where shame smothers me. When I recognize that, you know what, God has removed that and I'm not living in the self-consciousness.
Oh, man.
That's where the freedom is.
So good. Yeah.
And that's where it's like, oh, wow. because I don't think shame is a part of our vocabulary of culture. I think we have a shame-denying culture that is wanting, don't you put that on me.
But I think almost...
You must validate me.
Yeah, I think almost every human behavior, though, can be traced back to shame.
I do.
From boasting to pity parties to gossip, I think everything.
But we run from that diagnosis.
We do.
Because we don't know what to do with it. We don't know how to manage it, and we don't know, and so in all of that, I'm just like, gosh, God actually is wanting to remove this. That's a good instinct.
Yeah.
It's just all the ways we go about trying to have that transaction happen fail. If he's not the one that has removed it.
But here's how I want people to hear that, and see if you think this is worthy. Because I think when you say that, of people being open to the gaze and unashamed, and people see that as something they will never attain. It's just, I will never get in that space. Instead of, why don't you lean into your awareness of God? And even if you do it for 4 or 5 seconds today, and maybe it's 9 or 10 seconds tomorrow, and maybe it's, and I don't mean a discipline of spiritual something or other. I just mean let that focus on God, not be an on-off switch, but a rheostat where you let that grow. You lean into that reality, and you lean out of the reality that I'm disgusting and horrible and don't work hard enough and God disappointed in me. I've said often to people, what if you knew God was never disappointed in you, ever? Now, it doesn't mean he's not disappointed by stuff you did or things you thought, because I think God's disappointed in those things.
I was going to say, I'd recalibrate that I can live past the failures of moments because I'm aware that does not stop his love for me.
Right, but I would say I've never been a day I've been disappointed in my children. Have they always done what I want them to do? No. Have they always done the best choices? No, they haven't. But I've never been disappointed in them as people. They're my dearly loved children. I look at that stupid dog we got running around here. We just love that little thing. I hate leaving town because I missed 10 days of her growth, and I don't want to be home for that. But I'm not. Does she do things she's going to learn not to do? Yeah. But it's that whole idea that God's disappointed in me as a human being that I can't get across. I think that partly defines the shame in our hearts.
See, that is a byproduct of my looking at me through my lens.
It is. Absolutely.
And it's like if there was a one change of behavior that I would hope to bring across, it's the fact that when my gaze is on him, I'm going to come up with a far better set of realities than when it's focused on me.
Yeah. And
that's the simple change.
It is. And this is worth learning. It's a simple change. We can talk about it simply. Learning to live in the reality of God's perspective instead of your own is a journey. It will take some time. It's leaning one way more than the other, and you'll get better at it over time. It'll seem more natural over time. I think all transformation works in our life that way. It becomes getting out of shame, it becomes less intense, less long, less difficult, and learning to have that gaze you're talking about becomes more natural, more free, and more often. And just let it be transitional like that. Don't look like I got to jump from A to B and then I'm going to totally focus on God now for the rest of my life.
So,
no, you won't.
That is still a self-focused lens where it's like, you know what it is to be captured by something. Yeah. It's not a work of you. I'm going to be captured. Yeah. That's the power of a something to get your gaze. Yeah. God is that. And my prayer is, hey, Lord, fascinate me, capture me. When you do, everything is so much better. I'm not very good at, peering through my layers and veils. Yeah. I don't even know the blindness I have. But the brightness that you are can pierce all of that and find me in my darkness. So please come find me. Please reveal yourself to me. Please capture my heart.
Yeah, and we're out of time but I think that would also define what real fellowship is about. How does our conversations fascinate each other with who God is, rather than drill down on, again, who we are and how we lack and all that stuff? If we could really fascinate each other with the things God's letting us know.
That produces light and life.
That's the conversation I want to have, for sure.
Amen.
Thank you for travelling with us today on The God Journey. You can join this conversation by visiting thegodjourney.com.